Hi guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Bhooki. If you're new here, hello, hi, how are you doing? And if you're old, welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to sew a polo shirt placket. And without wasting your time, let's get to it. To start, I'm going to fold the front panel of the polo shirt in half. In my two previous videos, I showed you guys how to cut a polo shirt with the placket. So I will be repeating the same steps here by measuring 5 inches for the placket length and ½ inch for the width. I'll link the videos in the description box down below and in the card above. If this is your first attempt in sewing a placket, I suggest you notch the center of the neckline. Now, from the placket line, you can see that it creates a short neckline on the left and a longer one on the right. Just so you know, this is a men's polo shirt. To cut the placket, I'm going to use lightweight interfacing to draft the measurements. You can use any type of interfacing you want. I'm also going to cut 2 plackets, measuring 9 inches long and 1¼ inches wide. I usually add 2 inches allowance at the top and bottom, which is why this is 9 inches long. You can always add as much allowance as you want. The next step is to fuse the interfacing to the fabric. I'm going to start by drawing a line at the edge of the fabric, which is the center front, because it's not straight. Then I'm going to place the interfacing close to the line, probably like 2 millimeters away, as this is going to be the center front sewing allowance. Once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to fuse the interfacing to the fabric using a steam iron. This placket is for the shorter neckline, so I'm going to fold the fabric in half, add an extra ½ inch sewing allowance and then cut it just like so. The extra ½ inch sewing allowance is used to clean up the edges for those who do not have an overlocker. Don't worry, I will explain this later in the video. So I'm just going to give this a good press to flatten it before cutting. Next, I'm going to trim a little bit off the center front sewing allowance because I do not want it to be too wide. Once I'm done cutting, I'm going to fold in the ½ inch sewing allowance on the other side and then give it a good press. I added sewing allowance on the other side because 1, I'm not fusing interfacing all through the fabric, and 2, this is going to clean up the edge for those who do not have an overlocker. For the second placket, which is for the longer neckline, I'm going to place the interfacing close to the edge of the fabric, which is the center front, just like I did before. Then I'm going to fuse the interfacing to the fabric using my steam iron. Once I'm done, I'm going to add ½ inch sewing allowance to the other side of the placket, then I'm going to cut it. Once I'm done again, I'm going to fold in the ½ inch sewing allowance and then give it a good press. Then we're done making the plackets. Just to remind you that the fabric close to the edge of the interfacing, which I'm cutting right now, is the 2 millimeter center front sewing allowance. The next step is to sew in the placket. As I said before, the wider placket is for the shorter neckline, which is going to make the placket open towards the right, while the smaller placket is for the longer neckline, which is going to overlap the wider placket. Next, I'm going to take my placket to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew in the 1/2 inch sewing allowance at the edges of the placket. To sew the placket onto the front panel, I'm going to place the wider placket on the placket line, making sure that I have enough allowance at the top and the bottom. Then I'm going to sew a straight line. I'm going to place the second placket next to the first one on the placket line and then sew a straight line as well. So this sewing is going to be a continuous one. Once I've sewed the first placket in place all the way to the placket line point, I'm going to raise my footer, turn my fabric around and then add the second placket. Then I'm going to continue sewing all the way to the neckline, just like so. So once I'm done, this is what it looks like. Next, I'm going to cut right in the middle of the sewing until I'm almost at the apex point. You have to be really careful as you do not want to cut through the stitches. I'm going to turn the placket to the back side of the fabric. Then I'm going to arrange the plackets by overlapping them. Remember that the placket opens towards the right side. Then I'm going to give it a good press. So once I'm done, this is what it looks like. Next, I'm going to secure the smaller placket by sewing right at the edge of the placket. I'm not going to sew all the way to the neckline because I will be inserting a collar. Next, I'm going to flip the front panel over and try to press the sewing allowance into the placket just like so. It is better to iron this because it's just a bit tricky to do. Next, I'm going to close the flap over the sewing allowance and then sew a straight line to secure it. It's actually easier to watch than explaining. So once I'm done, this is what it looks like. The next step is to secure the plackets to the fabric. So I'm going to do this by sewing a rectangle at the end of the placket opening. If your hands are not straight, I think it's better you just draw out your rectangle before sewing. Now, this rectangle has to be on the placket. You cannot sew outside the placket. So once I'm done, this is what it looks like. The final step is to trim off any excess plackets at the top and at the bottom. So this is what the finished placket looks like. As you can see, the placket looks neater due to the 1/2 inch sewing allowance I added in place of using an overlocker. If I were to add a collar at this point, I would have to insert the collar first and then secure the smaller placket to the fabric by sewing a straight line. However, we're not doing that now. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and please do not forget to subscribe. If you have any question, please put it down in the comment section below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Until next time, my loves, have a good day.